Once, several years ago, when I was just starting out my writing career, I was asked to write my own contributor's note for an anthology I was part of. I wrote, I am the only daughter in a family of 6 sons. That explains everything. Well, I thought about that ever since, and yes, it explains a lot to me. But for the reader's sake, I should have written, I am the only daughter in a Mexican family of 6 sons. Or, I am the only daughter of a working class family of 9. All of these had everything to do with who I am today. Being the only daughter in a family of 6 sons forced me by circumstance to spend a lot of time by myself because my brothers felt it beneath them to play with the girl in public. But the loneliness was good for a would-be writer. It allowed me time to think, to imagine, to read, and prepare myself.
So here, girls, she says that she was the only daughter in a Mexican American family or Mexican family. The mother is Mexican American, but the father was Mexican. She repeats this sentence like 3 or 4 times. I'm the only daughter of a working class family of 9. I'm the only daughter of a Mexican father and a Mexican American mother. I'm the only daughter among 6 sons in a Mexican family. So the repetition here shows you what she wants to press it, she wants to show it. So if we go to question A, the author's purpose, author is Sandra. What is her purpose? In reread lines 11 to 15, what specific experience is the subject of this personal essay? So here she writes it and she says about herself that she was the only daughter. The experience here. Identify the details that help you draw your conclusion. Okay, here she wants to show you how is the life for a daughter, an only daughter in a Mexican family. So she says what? She used to play alone here in line number 11, 12, 13, and line number 13, 14, the loneliness. She was always alone. Why? Because her brothers, because my brothers felt it beneath them to play with the girl in public. So they refused to play with her in public. So she was always alone. And when someone is always alone, it gives him a chance to find other hobbies to do. So the repetition of only daughter here and the detail of that her brothers refused to play with her will do what will show us the idea that she wants to write about.
Being only a daughter from my father meant my destiny would lead me to become someone's wife. That's what he hoped for. That's what he believed. But when I was in 5th grade and shared my plans for college with him, I was sure he understood. I remember my father saying, Que bueno, mija, that's good. That meant a lot for me, especially since my brothers thought the idea was hilarious. What I didn't realize was that my father thought college was good for girls, good for finding a husband. After 4 years in college and 3 more in graduate school, and still no husband, my father shakes his head, and even now, he says that I've wasted all that time in education. In retrospect, I'm lucky.
So, being an only daughter for her father, it means what? Destiny means fate, determined fate, something has to happen. So, Mexican family believe, as many of the Arab countries believe, that the girl should get married and be a wife and then a mother. This is the job for a woman, and especially in Mexican family, and that is too close to our Arabic countries. So her father believed that she's going to be a wife, okay, but then she was in grade 5 and she told him that she is planning to go to college and she wants to continue her high school and that. And her father agreed. He said, wow, it's a good idea. Why? He thought that in college it will be a good chance for him to find a husband. So still she is joining the college to get a husband. She's continuing her study to get a husband. So she finished the school, she finished the college, and yet she didn't get a husband. And that made her father sad. Always says, "You've wasted your time, you've wasted your life."
My father believed daughters were meant for husbands. It didn't matter if I majored in something silly like English, or after all, I'd find a nice professional eventually, right? This allowed me the liberty to ponder about little poems and stories without my father interrupting with so much as, "What's that you're writing?" But the truth is,
So here she says that in retrospect, what is retrospect? Retrospect is view of something past. Okay, so in retrospect, I'm lucky my father believed daughters were meant for husband. So the only thing my father wanted from me is to get married. It didn't matter if I majored in something silly like English. After all, she didn't care if she gets her master's in English or she works as a professor or a professional eventually at the end. So it allowed her to have liberty. What's liberty? Freedom to work about anything she wants. So, what did she like to do about embroidering? Embroidering, this cloth, the dresses you wear, there are embroideries on it with the needle and thread. They draw flowers and it's embroidery. So she says, but instead of embroidering the cloth, she embroidered her little poems and stories without anyone interrupts her. So he didn't care about her work, he didn't care about her major, her anything, her poems. He only cared what when you are going to get married, that's it. Okay, so that allowed her on the other side to be free and to work on her writings and her poems, which was not good in her father's eyes. If we look at the picture in page 903, what do you feel when you look at the picture? A woman, huh? This woman looks like thinking, right? Thinking, huh? So that supports the essay. Yes, maybe this resembles Sincero when she is what? When she's planning for her future, right? Okay, turn the page, 904.
I wanted him to interrupt. I wanted my father to understand what it was I was scribbling, to introduce me to as my only daughter, the writer, not as, "This is only my daughter, she teaches," es maestra, the teacher, not even profesora. In a sense, everything I have ever written has been for him, to win his approval, even though I know my father can't read English words. My father represents, then, the public majority, a public who is disinterested in reading, and yet one who I am writing about and for, and privately trying to woe. When we were growing up in San Francisco, we went.
I will read these three lines because they are missed from the essay. Anyway, from like 32. She said that in deep inside of her, she has always wanted him to encourage her, to interrupt. She wanted to show him, look, daddy, you have a girl, you have a professor. I'm not a silly woman. I'm educated. I wanted my father to understand what it was I was scribbling to introduce me as my only daughter, because when he sees other families he says to them my only daughter, but she didn't want that. She wants her father to be what? To be proud of her. She has done a lot of work, a lot of effort to make her father proud of her, but he says what? This is only my daughter, she teaches. He's not even proud that she is a professor, that she writes poems, that she writes stories, that she's a great author. He doesn't care. In a sense, everything I have ever written has been for him, to win his approval, to win his attention, to win his love, to win his that She wants to make him proud of her. Even though I know my father can't read English words, even though my father's only reading includes the brown ink S2 sports magazines, he only read the sports magazines from Mexico City and the bloody Alarma magazines that feature yet another sighting of La Virgin de Guadalupe, which is down the La Virgin de Guadalupe. Spanish, the Virgin of Guadalupe, a vision of Mary, the Virgin Mother of Jesus, said to have appeared to a hill outside Mexico City. So, this is what he likes to read. These are his interests. On a tortilla, tortilla is the Mexican food, or a wife's revenge on her philandering husband engaging in many casual love affairs, a cheater husband. A wife's revenge on her philandering husband by bashing his skull in with a molakiti. Molakiti is in Spanish kitchen mortar, like a knife made of volcanic rock. Okay, down bow for grinding grain. Grain at the bow that used for grinding grain, or the photo novels. Photo novels is in a word in Spanish. The latter picture paperbacks with tragedy and trauma erupting from the character's mouth in bubbles. Trauma here means severe physical or emotional distress. The trauma. Trauma is something very harsh happens to you. Math bubbles. So here she says to you what her father likes to read. She's making fun of this stuff. She makes more than this, and she can write much better than that. But her father doesn't give attention to her. So let's look at question B, style and voice. Reread lines 34-42. Describe Sicneros' tone, the tone or attitude toward her father and his reading habits. Which details strongly convey her feelings? So let's look at the feelings. The tone here is what? Read it again, girls, when she says he likes to read the sports magazine, or about the woman who broke the skull over her philandering husband, or the so she took what she is mocking is making fun. She has an affectionately mocking tone toward her father's kind of reading that he likes to read, right? And the details, which are in lines 37, 38, 39 till 40. And you can write this sentence: bashing his skull in with a mulakiat, or tragedy and trauma erupting from the character's mouth in bubbles. And okay, so all of these do what? Convey what? Which details strongly convey her feelings? These details convey her feelings that she makes fun. So the tone here is mocking tone. We have a mocking tone here. Okay.
A lot because of my father. He suffered bouts of nostalgia. Then we'd have to let go of our home, store the furniture with my mother's relatives, load the station wagon, and head down south to Mexico City. We came back, of course, to yet another San Francisco home, another San Francisco neighborhood, another Catholic school. Each time my father would speak to the parish priest in order to get a tuition break and tell him, I have 7 sons. He meant siete hijos, 7 children, and it translated to everyone, I have 7 sons. For example, to the Sears employee who sold us the washing machine, to the short order cook where my father ate his ham and eggs for breakfast, he would tell them, I have 7 sons, as if he deserved a medal for it. My dad, he didn't mean anything but a mistranslation, I'm sure. But somehow I could feel myself being erased. I'd tug on my father's sleeve and whisper, not 7 sons, 6, and 1 daughter.
So here, my father represents then the public majority, public who is disinterested in reading. She says her father has no interest in reading, disinterested in reading, and yet one whom I am waiting about for the privately trying to woo, to speak or to get his approval. Woo is approval. So when they were growing up in Chicago, and she says, we moved to Allah because of my father. He suffered bouts of nostalgia. What is nostalgia? Nostalgia is longing to the past, a wistful longing for the past of the familiar. Nostalgia when you, when I was little, we used to have this and we used to have this. This is nostalgia when you have a longing to the past. So they moved and they used to leave their flat to go to another flat, to go to another city all the time. So we come back, of course, to yet another Chicago flat, another Chicago neighborhood, another Catholic school, because all of this, when you change the city, you change everything. You change the neighbors, you change the flat, you change the school, you change everything. And each time he moves, when anyone talking to him, he says, I have seven sons. He says it in Spanish. He says, I have it siete joyas. Siete joyas is seven children, but he translated it to sons. So he always says, I have seven sons. I have seven sons. When anyone talks to him, he says, I have seven sons. Put your shoes in the place of Sandra. If you have like three brothers and a girl, and he says, I have four brothers, deep inside you'd feel like your father is not proud of having you. He doesn't mention, I have one daughter. So he takes you among the gang, as we can say. So he takes her among the gang. So she used to say, my papa, he didn't mean anything. She says she loves her father and she knows that he doesn't mean anything. He just mistranslating the words. She says, I am sure, but when I was little, I felt myself erased. I felt that I don't count. So I tug his sleeve and whisper, not seven sons, Papa, six and one daughter. Okay? So we reached to question 7, the author's purpose. In personal essays, writers often express opinions on subjects. The opinion on the subject, which details in lines 46 to 61, suggests Sicneros' opinion. Which details here? She says that her father used to say, I have seven sons. Her father has misinteresting into reading. Her father doesn't look at her work. So her father is so proud of having seven sons. Because she says as if it is a medal, he's going to get a medal. Okay, he's so proud of having seven sons. Okay, he says to anyone. And then she felt what? She says what in line 57, 58? She says, I could feel myself being erased. So here she supports the first idea in the first passage. I was the only daughter. I was the only daughter. My sons refused to play with me because they were ashamed to play with a girl. And here she says her father didn't mention her not and she always suffered from loneliness. She was always alone, and even her father made her feel erased and made her feel that she doesn't exist. So she used to feel that, and she used to tell him, no, father, not seven sons, six and one daughter. Okay, we stop here, girls. Continue next time. See you.